And all I have to say is, drizzle, drizzle.
Cursed be the ground, for our sake. Both thorns and thistles it shall bring forth for us. For out of the ground we were taken, for the dust we are. And to the dust we shall return.
You can't win, you can't break even, and you can't get out of the game. People keep saying things are gonna change, but they look just like they stay the same. You're getting way over your head, and you only got yourself to blame. You can't win. out. Can't break even, can't get out of the game. Yeah.
I'm done. I'm done with life, and it's all Jermaine's fault. It's always Jermaine's fault. I'm done.
All right, you Dusty Kings, what's going on? Okay, we back in the house. Okay, took Tuesday off because we did 2 on Monday, and Tuesday was an interesting day. So, especially with the VP debate, which we probably will do tomorrow. I think we'll do that one tomorrow. We won't do it today. Since I already had this one planned, I wanted to do this one, so I'll do this one first. We'll do the VP tomorrow. And plus, we got all this other stuff that's going on that I'm probably going to have to do some kind of Patreon. I might do something tonight. I don't know, but I have to do probably have to do something on Patreon about what's going on between Iran and Israel, because that is, you can almost see it coming. You can almost see it coming. But we'll talk about that another time. But right now, let's welcome some people. We'll have some fun today. This will be fun. And let you know, I can't play the full video. I can't play the video itself because Breakfast Club has a very strict copyright policy. So I play like 8 minutes of the video. They'll get clipped. So we have to do with audio alone today. All right. Prince, what's going on? Louis, what's happening? Adric, what's happening? Adric's winding up third, so it's going to be a mediocre stream because Adric's third. AL, what's going on? I'm listening. Turtle Bitcoin, what's going on? What do you think about the Bitcoin minis? Okay, because they're trading Bitcoins like futures now, which I always thought Bitcoin was the trading vehicle. But what do you think about the Bitcoin minis? Snowman, what's going on? Batting eighth. Okay. What do you think about Snowman? What do you think about the? And I'd have to do something later about this stuff going on, trying to mix basketball with race, and with these women mixing in race and basketball, man, which is getting highly absurd. Okay, just because a white girl can ball and people are getting behind her because she can ball, these black women are actually going nuts. Quentin, what's going on? Brian Will, Bratton Nice, don't care. Alexander, what's happening? Inspired Truth, what's going on? It's gonna be it's the Breakfast Club, Reyes, Angela Rye, and Byron Donald going at it. So, Devon, what's going on? Tara B 2002, what's going on? Only two things I disagree with Byron on: FBA not getting reparations and racism don't exist in America. He's a Republican, so he's going to have to say that. Okay. Although I don't think we're going to get reparations. Just my feel of it. Unless Africa really steps up and we really step into Africa, we won't get reparations. Don't have enough pull, and nobody listens to little old me. Big old me, what's going on? Very little. Joe Hunter, what's going on? Brooklyn's finest, what's going on? Babu. Shout out to people in the NYC is one of my biggest audiences, so shout out to the NYC. I don't get no love in LA, man. I don't know why. Very little. What's happening? Paying my BGS looks good tax. Joe? No. I hope so too. I hope they will too. I hope they'll cover it too. But I don't think they will. Fire Nation, what's going on? John Smith, what's happening? Leon, what's up, man? King Trick, what's going on? Cutting up with the Joneses, what's happening? Mr. Snazzy, what's happening? Willie R. Oh, you're leaving the office now? Okay, you're gonna have a good drive then. I did. I saw it. Yeah, I'm pretty much on top of it. Kangaroo, what's happening? I got dust on my shirt and there's no remorse. Just brush your shoulders off, boss. That's all you got to do. Trail, what's going on? Ghost. Salute. Do you watch Breaking Points? They had a B Just Was Right video about Iran and Israel earlier today. Oh, I don't watch them, but anybody with eyes can see that it was coming. Tunnel Runner, what's happening? Supreme Pivot, what's going on? Dr. Goodbar, what's happening? Marvin M, what's going on? And Chemistry, what's happening, man? Ain't seen you in a minute. Are you in the States? My thing about the interview is we can disagree without being disrespectful. Not if you're black man and with a gynocrat. Detro, what's going on? Carlton Banks, what's happening? Canceling Janet Jackson for Kamala is crazy. You can't cancel Janet Jackson. Okay, it's not gonna happen. Pragmatic Prime, what's going on? Let's see. Bureau, what's happening? Zenson, what's going on? Federal, what's going on in the gynocratic capital of the United States? Proud to be a simp, what's going on? And the East Coast ports on lockdown right now as well in October, a month before the election. If I was them, I'd do the same thing. Okay, makes sense. Yango, what's going on? Terrell, what's happening? Alex, what's going on? Dusty PhD, what's happening? I see. Got Marvin, KP from KC5. That's what we got. Yeah, Oh, Big Red Comet. Ain't seen you in a minute, man. What's happening? Red Pill Sleeper Cell breaking. They're flooding my store with paper goods. Walmart and VA is out of really paper. I'm going. Oh, okay, yeah, because of the shipping strike. Yeah, okay. Yep, yep. That's true. Better stock up. Black Republic, y'all gonna learn today. Okay. The Yo, what's going on? 401 Fund of Money, what's going on? They might. It depends, man. It depends. Buddha 21. They don't have to. They don't. It's stepping up in that way. They don't have to. Okay. All they have to do is get behind you because they have resources. They don't have to come up with money. If I'm not even going to explain it, man, because one, I get in trouble. Two, it take too long. About reparations and how it would help both parties. Black males, what's happening? Good. Well, the thing is, because they're both politicians, there's not a lot to disagree on. What up, Albert? Ain't seen you in a minute. And Miss Delta, appreciate you. Anti-reparations, not party persist. The thing is, we're begging for policy and politics, okay, instead of doing business. Okay, if you do business, have a better chance of getting it done. Wolfbang, what's happening? I'm here after taking a much-needed head clearing. Okay. Joe Ethereal, what's going on? Dane Rose, Win Forever, JT. Okay, for a few more months. Okay. Okay, you finally crossed over. Okay. Black people often disagree with rude arguing. Sad. Yeah, that's the gynocratic way of doing things. Okay. Travis, what's going on, man? It's a negotiation, man. We think of Africa like they're our colony or something like that, but they're not. Is this the October surprise? I don't think it is, but the thing is, they've made a lot of enemies, and a lot of people are sticking it to them right now. Not much paying attention to the fire department press conference about this bio explosion that's happening. Oh, really? Okay. Eric Archer, what's going on? Let's see, who else is it? Atlanta Stay Focused, what's going on? Exiting ASAP, BGS. I heard that. Okay. Philip Redden, what's going on? Rain Lab and Ron Brown. Okay, my man. All right, let's go ahead and get started. We have 15 minutes in. Let's go ahead and get started. Remember, this is audio, okay, because the copyright on the Breakfast Club is stupid, okay? So this is going to be audio.
Wake that ass up.
Early in the morning.
The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ NV, Just Hilarious, Charlamagne the God. We are the Breakfast Club. Jess is on maternity leave, so Lauren LaRosa is filling in. We also have our sister Angela Rye with us this morning.
The host of the Native Land Podcast.
That's right, and we got a special guest in the building. He's from Brooklyn. The brother...
Carlton Banks, I would love to explain it to you, man, but one, I don't think you would accept it, and two, you don't know enough, okay? Simple equation. Simple equation, okay? We don't give we don't give Africa anything. We get more out of Africa than we put in, okay? Simple equation. I would explain it to you, but one, I don't think you can accept it, and two, I don't think you know enough to really accept it, okay? It's not that, even though it's not that hard.
Iron Donalds also went to FAMU too, HBCU.
FAMU. That's
There you
right.
go. All right.
96, 99.
Well,
I didn't know
welcome,
you were
brother.
from Brooklyn.
Yeah, Crown Heights, Brooklyn.
Can't you tell his demeanor the way he speaks? I'm like, he don't sound like nothing but a New Yorker.
Park Place, Troy, and Schenectady, man.
The way he walked in, I was like, he's
Yeah.
New Yorker. But welcome,
Interesting.
brother.
So how'd you become I guess because, in New York is considered such a liberal place. How did you become a conservative?
Oh, man. Politics came late for me in life.
You started as a Democrat, right?
Yeah, I was a registered Democrat.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't really care about politics. I think a lot of people like that in the country. They just register as whatever family or friends are, not really
Yep.
thinking about it.
Facts.
My career was finance. So I graduated with
Facts.
a degree of finance marketing from Florida State. I had too much fun at FAMU, so I had to transfer.
Okay.
So I transferred to FSU, got my degree there, started in my career, worked in banking, worked in
Normally, people that get into finance turn conservative. It is what it is.
insurance. And then through the financial collapse of 08, my company had international clients. And they were saying, we need to get information for our clients so we can keep the investment going. So I started doing the research because I had worked in banking for 5 years.
Carlton, if I'd invite you up if I thought you know what you're talking about. If I thought I'm a Pan-African. I've been in Pan-African for about 35 years. If I thought you knew what you're talking about, I'd actually call you up.
And when I did the research, one of the last things I did was watch the House Financial Services Committee in Congress. First time I ever watched a congressional committee.
He's born in. His parents are from the Caribbean. He's born in New York. Okay. He's born in New York, so he's from Brooklyn. Okay.
And I watched it, and really for me, it was that the members didn't know what they were talking about. I was like, who are these people? I was 29 at the time, 29, 30. And I'm thinking, who are these guys? They don't know what they're talking about. A lot of stuff doesn't make sense. And so that's really what started having me starting to think about politics. And, the journey kind of went from there. But I got to tell y'all both, my son, he's sitting at home, my son Mason, and he's a huge fan. So he listens all the
It don't matter whether he ADOS or not. That ain't the point. Okay. Okay. What difference does it make whether he's ADOS? Okay. Your VP ain't ADOS. Okay. Okay. Your black president wasn't ADOS. What difference does it make? This is politics today. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether he's Caribbean or not. Doesn't matter, okay? He's just like the Nigerians that come here, become American, and become Americanized. He's from Brooklyn, okay? That's where he's born and raised. But he ain't knowing. But basically, he's not that unusual from other people that came in from someplace else, okay? Doesn't matter. Y'all want to argue about? You guys want to argue about his lineage? You guys want to listen to this, okay? Because if you guys want to argue about his lineage, we can do that. Gonna argue about his lineage, we can do that. We can stop it right now, argue about his lineage. What do y'all want to do? What y'all want to do? Well, they want to argue about lineage. The biggest capers for Trump are not tethers, as you want to call them. What y'all want to do? All right, Negus, that's enough, okay? If they're born here, hell, you got a president, okay, whose father wasn't born here, that you love, okay? Thank you. So Negus, it's enough. Okay. Next time you're gonna get timed out. You made yourself clear. Okay.
Time, so I got to give a shout to Mason.
Salute to Mason. Thank you, Mason.
Congressman, you just mentioned that you attended FAMU.
The biggest people that actually sell you out are people that have lineage just like you. Okay. The big people that sell you out are people that are born and raised in the United States and got a long lineage of slavery. Okay. Those are the biggest ones.
But graduated from Florida State. We know that Donald Trump committed $255 million annually to HBCUs, while the Biden administration invested more than $16 billion since fiscal year 2021 to HBCUs, averaging more than $4 billion annually. They also challenged states through the Department of Education, that same department that Project 2025 wants to abolish, and the U.S. Department of Agriculture to close a $12 billion gap between funding of land grant institutions that are traditionally white institutions and historically Black colleges. FAMU is, of course, one of those schools, as you know. The letter to Governor DeSantis said in the last 30 years alone, an additional over $1.9 billion would have been available for FAMU had this disparity not existed. What obligation does Florida have to properly fund FAMU to ensure rattlers like yourself are properly educated with the resources they deserve?
Well, look, I mean, thank you for the question. I think that the disparities you talk about between some of the, I guess probably more prolific universities in our state like UF and FSU versus FAMU, and even from some of the younger universities like UWF, UNF, et cetera, is something that when I was in the state legislature, we actually talked a lot about. My last year in Tallahassee, there was a project for the Student Services Building. It was about a $25 million project. Myself and members on the Democrat side of the aisle, we worked with the leadership in Tallahassee and then Governor DeSantis to make sure that FAMU got the money they needed to build that project out completely. And so that's something specifically I worked on. I think going forward, that is something we got to definitely address. I totally agree with that. I think there's two issues, though, in higher education we got to also address. We do have a problem with the unaffordability of college. And a part of the reason why it is a problem is because so much money is poured into universities, and we have told so many kids in the United States that the only way to be successful is to go to college. I'm from the generation. I don't want to talk about your age, Angela. I'm going to leave that alone. I'm going to call you 32 years old and I'm going to walk away.
I'm 44. I'll be 45 next month. It's all good.
32 is way better. But anyway, it's all right. It's all right. It's all right.
He's trying to butter her up right now, but ain't enough butter for her.
I think the point is that we have to start telling young people that there's multiple ways to be successful. When you have a situation coming from high school where all your successes can only be found with a 4-year degree, what you also end up doing is you put upward pressure on the cost of college.
Yeah.
But you're getting a lot of people coming out of college who have a degree that doesn't have economic value, when there are multiple pathways for success in the United States. So funding that is on par through all universities is important. I do agree. But we also have to address the realities that pushing every high school student into college with the false reality that a college degree is going to make you successful is not going to help them for success long term.
Facts. Yeah, facts. We talk about that all the time.
Because they're going to be burdened with the cost of that degree, go into the real world, and then realize, hold on, wait a minute. I can't get a job with the degree I have. Not all degrees are the same. I believe personally an accounting degree, a finance degree like I have, an engineering degree, a law degree.
Oh, it's actually a timer. Actually, I forget to take it off, but actually the timer is for, say, when I have a panel and somebody wants to make a statement, okay, without me interrupting, I give them 2 minutes. So it's a 2-minute timer. So instead of, if they really insist they want to get what they want out and they say I'm interrupting them, I give them 2 minutes to actually say what they're going to say. And then if it makes sense, we'll keep talking about it. If it doesn't make sense, I bid them good night. That's what the timer's for.
That has more economic value overall in the economy than a marketing degree, which I also have, or a communications degree, or a psychology degree, or a philosophy degree, etc. If you can get into psychology and make that work for yourself. So I think there's multiple layers to college education that we need to address.
Let me ask you a question, right?
Yeah.
So I want to go back a little bit. So you were arrested before for marijuana.
Yeah.
You're arrested for bank fraud.
Yeah.
You're also of Caribbean descent.
Yeah.
Jamaican.
Yeah.
when you hear Donald Trump talk about some of the other brothers that were arrested and taking out that full ad in the paper, or you hear them talking about Haitian people eating dogs and cats, you still stand by them and what they believe, and if you do, why?
Well, a couple things.
Because you were given a second chance, because like you should have been, but you know, why do you still stand by them if you do?
Well, I think you also got to acknowledge that when he was president, he also did the First Step Act, which undid a lot of the issues with the '94 crime bill that a lot of politicians, including the current president, were for. He undid that when he was president of the United States.
That is true. That people keep forgetting that Biden, they didn't call him Jim Crow Joe for nothing, okay? Biden pushed for the crime bill.
I think second chances are important in society. I think everybody's afforded them. You know, what happened with the Central Park Five, I was probably 6th, 7th grade, 8th grade when that was going down in New York.
Yep.
I can't really speak to that, but what I also
it was all over the paper.
I know it was everywhere. You couldn't escape it.
We were around
the
same age, so we seen it everywhere.
You couldn't escape it. But what I would also add is that in 2000, Donald Trump was a member of the Reform Party. Most people don't talk about this. He was a member of the Reform Party. When David Duke joined the Reform Party, he left. And he famously said, "I can't be associated with that party because they let David Duke come in. That man is a Klansman." When he bought Mar-a-Lago, he desegregated Mar-a-Lago. But at the time when he bought it, only white people were allowed in Mar-a-Lago. He desegregated that, allowed black people and Jewish people to be a part of Mar-a-Lago. So I think that when you start going down the road of the past, you have to take a man in his totality. I know the man today. And then when you couple that with the economic policies, the energy policies, the foreign policy.
Carlton, knock it off, okay?
We have to acknowledge the reality that in the world today, the United States is in the midst of two conflicts, not directly, but indirectly. We just sent troops over into the Middle East because of the growing conflict with our ally Israel, having to essentially secure its sovereignty and its protection from Hezbollah and Hamas. Well, when Donald Trump was president, we didn't have to do any of that. So I acknowledge the stuff that you're talking about that happened in the past, but I think you have to take a man on the full record. And when he was president, he did release a lot of black people from prison. He did that.
Yeah,
he did try to reform some of the criminal justice system. He did that as well. And so that work is just as important as something that he might have said back during the Central Park Five.
I acknowledge the First Step Act, but when you said he undid the '94 crime bill, what do you mean?
What I mean is that the reforms in the First Step Act undid in part some of the issues in the '94 crime bill. Not totally. Not totally. It dealt with the sentencing of those people who either had their sentences reduced or were released, and their convictions were in line with the '94 crime bill and the way criminal statutes were written during that under that piece of legislation.
And his thoughts on the whole
Hold on.
eating.
Go ahead, Angela. What's that?
Oh, what's up, Angela?
Sorry, just on this same point, you talked about taking the man in his totality.
Yeah.
So one of those things in his totality is what happened on January 6th, which was your first term in Congress.
Yeah.
Do you think he should be held accountable? Donald Trump should be held accountable for his role in the January 6th insurrection?
Well, I mean, listen, first of all, I would tell you that everybody's responsible for their own actions. Just like I'm not going to blame friends or blame anybody else for the things I've done wrong in my life, I'm not going to put that on him. I'm not going to run around and blame Bernie Sanders for the fact that Steve Scalise was shot. Because if you go back and look at when Steve Scalise, who's the current leader in the House of Representatives, who almost died at a congressional baseball practice. Hold on, I'm going to explain this. So I'm going to come back to January 6th.
Yeah, please do.
No, I will, of course. The shooter that almost killed Steve Scalise, the Republican leader, he said vehemently that the reason why he went to the congressional baseball practice of Republicans to shoot it up was because he felt that Republicans were going to take away health care. And what he had heard in his rhetoric was that was dangerous, and these Republicans had to be stopped. So I'm going to translate that to January 6th. The shooter is the one that perpetrated that crime. I'm not going to put that on Bernie Sanders, who he cited for the rhetoric around why he went to the congressional baseball practice. That's a shooter that almost killed Steve Scalise. Let me translate. Donald Trump authorized 10,000 National Guard troops. I'm on the oversight committee. He actually authorized 10,000 troops on January 4th, 2 days before January 6th, obviously. So if you're going to say that you incited an insurrection, then how are you also going to authorize 10,000 National Guard troops to be at the Capitol? Are you?
That is part of it. They don't tell. They don't tell that part, but he does. He did. And then Nancy Pelosi said she refused that she called him in.
Inciting, or are you not? Because the record is he authorized the troops. Nancy Pelosi and Muriel Bowser, the mayor of D.C., did not want the troops at the Capitol. Muriel Bowser signed a letter on January 5th wanting the National Guard troops to be on traffic duty. in D.C. Now, here's the funny thing about January 5th, 2021, is that nobody was in D.C. because D.C.'s rules around COVID-19 had the entire city shut down. The streets were empty during this time. So the National Guard that was authorized by Donald Trump were on traffic duty when there was no traffic, when they could have been at the Capitol. That's the history of January 6th. So your question is, well, did he incite a riot? Well, I never seen somebody incite a riot.
What I said, and I just, because I know,
I don't want to cut you off. I'm going to make one point. I'm going to make one point. I don't want to cut
No,
you off.
but I want to make sure that you're addressing the right point, because I actually did not use that language. What I asked you was, should Donald Trump be held accountable for his role in January 6th?
He was impeached, baby. Okay. What part of impeach is not being held accountable? He was impeached for it. Okay. Y'all keep forgetting that he was impeached. The Congress let him go. January 6th is a non-issue because the Congress, the highest court in the land, which is the Congress of the United States, let him go. Okay. They said he wasn't involved. They let him go. Okay. It's a non-issue.
And so what I think is important is to compare this.
He was impeached for January 6th. Yes, he was.
To Steve Scalise being shot after someone wanted health care versus the rhetoric, the very dangerous rhetoric that Donald Trump spouted on January 6th, where more than...
Donald Trump was impeached for January 6th. They cut him loose. He was impeached.
More than 1,200 people have been charged in nearly all 50 states for their role, and 140 police officers were assaulted. The same police officers that your party has said they want qualified immunity for, and Donald Trump, because we're looking.
All impeachment means is that the bills of impeachment means that they put you on trial. That's all. That Congress has to impeach you and put you on trial, and the Senate has to try you. Okay, that's what being impeached means. Okay. He was impeached.
Looking at the totality of the person, has said they should have full immunity, right? And when you think about the number of police officers who would get full immunity for their role in killing and being violent.
It doesn't matter whether it's a Republican-led Senate or not. Doesn't matter, okay? Was he impeached? Was he held accountable? If you're held accountable, that means you're impeached. As a president, is impeached for the crime. Okay. He was impeached. They cut a deal. They let him go. Okay. They might be regretting it now, but the thing is, that's what they did. So he was held accountable. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether he did it. No, personally, I think that he should have been censured or gone to jail. Personally, I think that way, okay? But it ain't my call. Personally, I think he should have, personally, I think he incited a riot. Personally, I think he should have gone to jail. Personally, I do. But the thing is, at this point, you impeached the guy. Congress impeached him and said he wasn't responsible for it. It's over. So they keep bringing it up. Number politics now.
With people in our community like George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Tamir Rice, Freddie Gray, Philando Castile, Charlene Lyles, Manny Ellis. Is that really the kind of rhetoric that you want to push, especially at the Breakfast Club?
Well, hold on a second, Angela, because you brought in like 4 different topics now. Do you want to talk
No,
about
I
Trump?
didn't. What I brought in was January 6th responsibility, police accountability, and I used examples of why they should be held accountable. But you talked about how fantastic he was with the crime bill, which I object, but I'll let you finish your point.
Fair.
You also have not acknowledged the fact that this man was vehemently opposed to the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. And you all are supposed to be the party that protects law enforcement, where over 150 police officers were assaulted that day on January 6th. Because of Donald Trump's rhetoric.
Okay, so let me respond to a couple things. Number one, the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. There were actually 2 bills that were moving through the United States Senate that year. There was the George Floyd Policing Act that you discussed, and there was the bill that was written by Senator Tim Scott. They were both moving. They're both moving through the Senate, right? The Tim Scott bill is the one that could have got signed into law. It was essentially a mirror image of the George Floyd bill, except for qualified immunity. The difference between those 2 bills, and Angela, you just acknowledged it, the only difference between those 2 bills was qualified immunity. The issue with qualified immunity is very simple. If you remove qualified immunity from policing, you're going to have less officers on the street. Police officers make what? $70, $80, $90,000 a year. They have most law enforcement has about 40 million or more encounters every single year with citizens. If you remove qualified immunity, I'm telling you this right now because I've talked with law enforcement officers all across the country, not the chiefs, the officers. They will not be working these communities. I'm from Brooklyn, New York. I'm from Crown Heights, Brooklyn. I may not have always loved having the police in my neighborhood, and that's just a thing from a kid. I may not have always loved it, but when I needed them, they were there. And a lot of our officers today, they're black. They're
Because it pays. I thought you smarter than that, Carlton.
Hispanic, they're white. So removing qualified immunity only lowers the number of officers in communities. What we're seeing right now is a movement of policing from states where they're not really respecting law enforcement to states where they do, or there's not that moral support for law enforcement. I was in my district yesterday. I was talking with an officer.
Depend. You don't have enough police as it is, Trell. Y'all don't. You get. Y'all silly, man. So what do you guys? So are you guys gonna police your own communities? You gonna let the gangs police your communities, or the what you call it, police your communities instead of cops? Come on, y'all. Stop being silly.
Officer who's from Philadelphia. He was a Philadelphia officer. He now is a Fort Myers officer. I asked him, I was like, well, why'd you make the move? He goes, because up there was no support for me as an officer for what I love to do, which is serve my community. So I said, enough is enough. I'm gonna move. He went to Florida. My sheriff in Florida, he's like, I have more applications coming from officers who are in states or in localities where they're not getting the moral support or whatever they need to continue to do their job day in, day out. And so they're leaving. Well, who does that hurt? That hurts. Who does that really hurt, though, Charlamagne?
Yeah,
because if you don't have officers if you don't have officers on the streets or officers, in urban areas, who's really left in that lurch?
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out what does qualified immunity have to do with having less police officers?
Because
why would that?
Because the economic incentive of qualified immunity means that your personal assets aren't gone after if something goes wrong. So you're in business. Do you get involved in a project or a deal that leaves you massively exposed financially? You may, depending on your passion for that project, but then you also sit back and think, now, wait a minute, if something goes wrong, I'm going to be held massively liable. Maybe I need to do something
when we're
else
saying
with my
something
life.
goes wrong, we're talking about people getting violently hurt or killed.
Yeah, clearly.
And I named people that you brushed over.
But it's when somebody clearly violates a constitutional right.
And when you violate a constitutional right, qualified immunity doesn't apply to you. And that's what I'm talking about. It does not. And Angela, don't do that. It does not.
I thought that was the definition. I thought that was the definition.
No, it does not.
I thought that was the definition.
No, it does not. If you
they're talking to a lawmaker, okay? These people are not in Congress. They're not lawmakers. They're arguing with a congressman that has to pass these goddamn bills, okay? Like they're experts, which cracks me up.
If you carry yourself outside of the confines of your training and the protocols of that department, qualified immunity doesn't apply to you. It does not.
That's not true.
That is very true. That is very true.
That is patently false.
It's patently true, and we need to make sure we have that accurate. We cannot make that statement because you have a lot of officers out here who do their job with honor and dignity and respect for the people that they serve.
Listen, qualified immunity is a legal doctrine that protects government officials from civil lawsuits when they perform their jobs unless they clearly violate a constitutional right.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
And that's exactly what he was just saying, okay? Okay, and you're supposed to be a journalist.
What is a violation of that right is when they're outside the norms of their training and the protocols of that department or that agency.
But here's the main thing, because we can actually go past qualified immunity because this is the place where you've refused to answer both on Donald Trump.
No, basically, now you want to move the goalposts, okay? Because you're wrong. Now she wants to move the goalposts.
Trump's accountability and on the law enforcement that you love so dearly.
Right.
What we know is that he's seeking full immunity, like the same immunity he now has because of the Supreme Court, because of the corruption of the Supreme Court. We have now gone.
Angela Rye might be a lawyer, but she's not a lawmaker, okay? These people do this on a daily basis. He knows what he's talking about, okay? Because he writes the laws, okay? A lawmaker and a lawyer are two different things.
Beyond civil presidential immunity to criminal presidential immunity. He would like to give that.
Now Josh is mixing up presidential immunity with qualified immunity as far as a cop. Okay, she's trying to mix the two.
Same immunity to law enforcement.
No, it's
True or
not.
false?
It's not
Well,
the same.
let's expand that a couple
True
things.
or false?
You can't ask a true or
because
false,
this is-
Angela,
this
because
is
you
a
got to
very
explain the
simple-
details. No, see, this is the
I
problem.
don't want you to explain the details because when you
Why
explain
you
the
don't
details,
want people
we
to
end
hear
up
the
down the road
details,
and not
Angela?
with
The
facts.
details are what the things that matter. You
What I
got to
would
explain the
like for you to
details,
do
or
is
then you just
answer
talk. You're
true
just
or false
talking.
and then explain.
If
Can
you
do
don't,
that?
if you don't explain the details, then you're just talking.
Yeah, you don't want to say that because you know that it's not true. So
That
let's
is
just
not
move
true.
along.
You want a true or false statement?
Congressman,
Hold on.
I want to know if
I don't
you've
want to
ever
argue with you. I want to explain the
experienced racism in
facts.
this country.
Angela, I don't want to argue with you.
I would
want to
like to
explain
know
the
if you've
facts.
ever experienced racism in this country, Congressman.
Yeah, actually, I have.
Okay. Do you believe America is a racist country?
No, I don't.
Okay, I believe that that's true because you said in an op-ed on Fox News as a black conservative.
Why don't you let him answer one question at a time? Okay. Jesus Christ, is this the NABJ?
I, like Senator Scott, agree in our two
I wonder if they had Kamala Harris in studio, would she be the same way?
lives and the lives of many black men and women like us are living proof that America is indeed no longer a racist nation and by far the best place to reach your fullest potential. And so here's my question. You did, however, vote to support the
And you know what? I heard that, Trell. I don't want you to explain the details because what? Because what? Because what? Where is it?
I'm done. I'm done with life, and it's all Jermaine's fault. It's always Jermaine's fault. I'm done.
Byron is Jermaine today.
Till Anti-Lynching Act,
course I
along
did.
with every member of the House except for 3 Republicans. So I appreciate your
course I did.
bipartisanship there. And what I do know as well, because America is in fact a racist country, was founded on such principles. Black men were lynched by the carceral state last week. I'm sure you've heard of Marcellus Williams by now in Missouri, who was convicted by a nearly all-white jury, and Freddie Owens in South Carolina, who was executed despite his friend recanting testimony that Owens was not in fact there. This is the same state, by the way, that allowed for a firing squad as an execution option. Black people are about 7.5.
Well, why don't you just instead of asking him questions, why don't you just come up and why don't you just host your own show? You say whatever you want. Okay? We're here to hear him, not you.
Times more likely to be wrongfully convicted of murder in the United States than are white folks, and about 80% more likely to be innocent than others convicted of murder, according to a 2022 report by the National Registry of Exonerations. So please tell me how America is not a racist country.
First thing I would say is that our past is a dark one. It really is. We can't walk away from that. We had whole laws that were subjugating black people in the South of this nation for decades after the Civil War. We can't walk away from that one. I believe that in America, we have great people in this country, and we have some people, quite frankly, that even I can't stand. But they're the vast, vast, vast minority of people in our country. Most people just want to live in harmony and peace. That's what they really want. I think the important thing to acknowledge today is what's going to help black people going forward. And what's going to help black people moving forward is economic policy. It's actually wide open energy policy so we can be energy dominant. It's, yes, securing our southern border because we have a situation right now where, yeah, there are more than 15 million illegal aliens in the country. Where do they reside? Mostly in sanctuary cities like New York. Where are they at? Sanctuary states like Illinois, like California. What's happening?
David Drencher, you put all caps on my in my chat one more time. I will ban you. Okay. You know, we're using internet etiquette. We do not use all caps. That's like cursing me out. Do that one more time, I will ban you. Okay. Letting you know.
Happening in those cities, hospital systems are overrun. Why are they overrun? Because you have people.
If you want my attention, you want me to read it, put it in the super chat, okay? Barry Little says Angela Rye is a DNC op. There is no answer you can give her that would be correct. That doesn't jibe with her program. That's true. But the thing is that means that the Breakfast Club is a Democratic op. But that's why he's there.
In the country illegally who don't have resources, so they're going into the emergency room. What are they taking up? They're taking resources from poor people in our country, whether they're black, whether they're Hispanic, whether they're white. That's wrong. What about education? We have a situation where in too many inner cities, kids are not reading at grade level, or they don't have math skills at grade level. How does that help them excel and achieve? I don't want to discount what Angela is saying. I don't. I acknowledge the issue of our nation, but we always are trying to strive to be the more perfect union. So in 2024, what are the economic policies? What are the national security policies? What are the border security policies that are gonna make our country thrive? So whether you black, Hispanic, or white, you could thrive.
Why?
And so I think it's
So
important.
then would you have to say that if it wasn't a racist country?
Now she talks a lot of times, and she interrupts him all the time.
Whether you're black, white, or Hispanic?
Okay, I mean, really, how long you're gonna be on this race shit? Because if that's what you want to talk about, talk about it. But the thing is, he's here to say what he wants to talk about instead of being questioned about whether he believes this is a racist country or
Hispanic,
not.
you could thrive?
No.
Are we thriving? Is our members in
Well,
your
I would
state,
argue
black
we're
folks
not.
in your
I would
state
argue we're not
thriving?
really thriving right now. This inflation, which by the way was brought to us by Kamala Harris, has really slowed down people from being able to excel.
By Kamala?
Yes,
Vice President.
Charlamagne.
I said, she starts the show. Will it come with lettuce and tomato on the side? Yeah, with ranch dressing. Can't have word salad without ranch dressing.
It's still the president.
Charlamagne, listen, man. When Joe Biden wanted to do his American Rescue Plan, Kamala Harris was the tie-breaking vote in the United States Senate. She broke the tie that started this inflation that has hurt so many people in our country. Everybody listening to your show, it's not true.
First of all, it's
you sure you want to go there?
Tie-breaking vote.
You sure you want to go there?
Go outside,
What you pulling
Congressman, when
out?
you go outside.
It's classic when he pulled. I wish I could show you when he pulls the doc. He came ready. He pulled the documents out of his jacket.
Want to go there?
District.
Okay, let's go there.
You had it
He got
printed out.
notes.
What I-
He got
what
notes,
I-
Angela.
Yeah,
Right?
see, he came ready.
That's fine. I have notes
I'm
too.
gonna give it.
and
I'm gonna
the
give it to
biggest note I have
Charlamagne.
today
I'm gonna give it to
is
Charlamagne.
that on
I don't
every
even want to hold
question
it
I've asked,
because
answer.
Angela.
Ramaswamy is not going to beat J.D. Vance. I'm going to tell you that, okay? Ramaswamy does not hold a candle to J.D. Vance. Not even close. It ain't even close.
Hold on now. Go ahead.
For every infrastructure project in your community,
You can go to
should
third
go
page,
out
just the
and
highlighted
thank
portion.
Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and the Congress that voted for the American Rescue Plan.
Angela,
That's what should be happening.
Larry Summers wrote an op-ed back in 2021. Larry Summers was the Treasury Secretary for Bill Clinton. He was an economic advisor to Barack Obama. He said that the American Rescue Plan that Joe Biden wanted, that Kamala Harris was the tie-breaking vote in the United States Senate, would create a massive inflation.
Oh, actually, he learned from Jill Stein, okay? That's who he learned from. He learned from Jill Stein, okay? He came ready.
That we have not seen in a generation. Well, guess what? Larry Summers was correct. You know who also was correct, Angela? I was, because I was in the budget committee when they brought the bill. And I said in that committee, it's going to cause massive inflation. That's what happened. So the problem we have in our economy today.
In other words, when they brought the bill, okay? When they brought the bill, he was in committee, and he knows this from the ground up, and you don't.
Today is that prices have gone up massively. Wages adjusted for inflation is down. People's pocketbooks are hurting, but we have a presidential election in 40 days. So, and I'm gonna ask Envy this question. Envy, you're in the housing business as well. I know because I watch.
Figure out how
I listen
Envy's
to the
being
show.
interviewed.
No, I'm just asking them a question. Chill, Angela. So I listen to the show. I know you do a lot of business in housing.
Mm-hmm.
Would you hire somebody that broke up stuff in one of your houses to fix the other houses?
No.
Exactly. She broke the economy.
I'm
That's
not going to do
not
this
me.
morning.
What, let me ask you this, RFM recordings. What is this saying with you millennials, to be fair, okay? That is white feminists talking, okay? To be fair, okay? Where y'all get this shit from? Here, a lot of millennials say that. Well, instead of saying, but, to be fair, man, get the fuck out of here.
Byron,
Why are you not
now
going
you
to do
told
this,
me to
Angela?
chill.
Because I'm
gonna
bringing
tell you
facts
to
and
chill
not.
and
Hold on
actually
now.
try to
So
take a
now
deep
I'm
breath
bringing facts, and
answer
you don't
a
want to do it
question.
no more. Come on now, Angela. That's not right. I'm bringing facts.
so
and I
back-
thought
so
we were
back
going
to
to have
the
a
point, 'cause you
fact-based
wanted to bring up-
conversation.
You
I want
wanted
to have a
bring up
fact-based
votes.
conversation.
You wanted to bring up votes, and so let's talk about votes.
Go ahead.
You have a 96% voting record with Heritage Action.
Angela,
and
I'm
for
not
those who
running
are
for
listening,
president, but we could talk about
for
mine.
for those who are listening,
Yeah.
Heritage Action is a part of the Heritage Foundation, which is the architect of Project 2025, which we can talk about more later.
Okay.
You voted no on HR 8404, which would provide federal recognition and protection to interracial couples.
What?
And that actually is a law that would benefit you, Congressman, given your marriage. You voted no HR 6878 on requiring the Bureau of Prisons to provide incarcerated women with certain pregnancy-related care, including sexually transmitted infectious testing, contraception, appropriate housing, bedding, clothing, access to...
Why don't you ask him why he voted no on those bills, okay, instead of just quoting what he voted no on? Why don't you ask him why?
hydration and restrooms, prenatal vitamins and other appropriate conditions of confinement, screening and care for high-risk pregnancy, substance use, and mental health support, including postpartum depression and prenatal education. The list goes on, and it would limit the use of solitary confinement for pregnant women. You voted no twice on the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, which would have restored the protection.
In other words, she's not going to let him rebut on it. She's just going to read out a list, okay?
Originally enshrined in the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which I've heard you tout. You also voted no on HR 3233, which established the Bipartisan Commission to investigate the terrorist and insurrectionist attack on January 6th at the Capitol. So you want to talk about voting?
Sure.
Please explain why you would vote so clearly against the interests of people who look just like you and I.
So the first two bills you talk about, I'll actually have to go back and see it, because a lot of problems with some of these bills are all of the other things that get put into them, not just the things that you're talking about. Specific to the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, the reason why I did not vote for that bill is because that bill would reinstitute what's called pre-clearance. Right now,
Yes.
Hold on. Man, Angela, you won't let me talk? Here we go. Here we go.
You.
Here we
Is
go.
that okay to say yes?
Okay, here we go. So check
Are
this
you
out.
okay?
Pre-clearance, right now, under federal law, really by Supreme Court precedent, is no longer the law of the land. The reason why that is because there's not been, over the last 30 years in elections, there's not been cases, or there's not been any specific cases around why you need pre-clearance in the first place, like was needed back in 1965, where you did have counties that were systematically discriminating against black people. So the plaintiffs could not prove at any point in the last 30 years where you still needed pre-clearance. I live in a pre-clearance county. Collier County, Florida is a pre-clearance county. I've lived in Collier County for 23 years now, 23 years. There's never been an issue with me casting a vote in Collier County, Florida at any time over the last 23 years, and that's before I became an elected official. That's when I showed up down there working the Cracker Barrel, being a waiter, and just figuring out how to make ends meet, and I could still cast my ballot. So every other protection under the Civil Rights Act of 1965 is still law today. What my Democratic colleagues want is they want national pre-clearance, so that if any jurisdiction, whether if they were a historically discriminatory jurisdiction or not, if they made a change in their procedure, like reshifting a precinct, deciding to shrink or expand precincts, that would actually have to go to the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department for approval before they can make those changes. Now, why is that not important today? More people are voting by mail. So you have a situation where local election jurisdictions are shrinking precincts or resizing precincts or putting two precincts together because they don't have the volume of people going to cast ballots in those precincts. You're now telling me that you have to now go to the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department to get approval to put two voting precincts together? That's why the John Lewis Act, and all due respect to John Lewis, great man, phenomenal career, but that's why that bill of putting pre-clearance in nationally, even in jurisdictions where there were no historical discrimination of black people, is not necessary legislation. Those are the details.
And this is on the other side of 747,000 voters being purged in North Carolina. This is on the other side. This pre-clearance provision was struck in Shelby County versus Holder, which is a super and has had a past of being super discriminatory. Since that, 100 laws have been put in place to make voting rights more restrictive for people of color for the last 10 years. So what you're saying is not factually accurate.
Actually, it's very factual. And I remember when Georgia changed their voting law, it was Joe.
How you going to tell a lawmaker that told you what's in the bill, what's factual, what's not factual, okay? How you going to tell him that? How do you know?
Biden, who was down in Georgia, talking about how this was not even Jim Crow, was whatever, I forget what he said, Jim Crow or whatever. Jim Crow 2.0.
You want to talk about Jim Crow as well?
But this is what Joe Biden said. Hold on, let's finish. Let me finish now. So this is what Joe Biden said back in 2022, I think is what he said. What happened with Georgia's new voting law that I would assume, I'm going to assume, Angela, I don't know for sure, I haven't seen what you said, that I would assume you would say is restrictive of black people. In Georgia in 2022, there was record turnout of black voters in the state of Georgia. Record turnout. I'm assuming in 2024, because those are the trends in the state of Georgia, you're going to have record turnout of black voters in 2024. So you had Joe Biden use a terrible part of our past to try to move people emotionally in a negative response to what Georgia was doing. What we have seen in the outcome is that Georgia has actually had more voting inclusion of people of color and of black people in that state.
The new Georgia laws make voter intimidation easier.
How?
So
How?
yeah, I think the most important thing here, Byron, that I think we're overwhelmingly hear you say is, as a black man in Florida, your argument is that it's easier to vote today than it was in 2013 when the Supreme Court eviscerated the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which again, I've heard you tout. Your argument is that states don't need preclearance, that counties don't need preclearance,
No, they don't.
that there's been no discriminatory impact since Shelby County versus Holder, and that's why they should get rid of it. You brought up Jim Crow, and I'm glad you did, because you also have had something to say about Jim Crow, and I know that this, for whatever reason, has been unnecessarily tense, but I would love to invite you to clarify your remarks around Jim Crow so that you can at least get rid of that part of misinformation. It's clear that you do stand opposed to the Voting Rights Act, though, in 2024.
No, we were in Philadelphia. We were talking about just the rise of black families again, and which is actually a great thing in our country. And really comparing that to what was happening under that time period, the Jim Crow era, where marriage rates in the black family were very high. After that era with Lyndon Johnson's Great Society, in part, that is the reason for the decrease in the marriage rate in black families. And if you're going to have in order to have strong black families, obviously you need the father in the home. You're starting to see that again in America. That's a great thing, because when fathers are at home helping to raise their kids and nurture their kids, it puts their kids in a better position to be able to be successful going forward. Like, my dad wasn't there when I grew up. It was really hard for my mom. My mom still lives in Brooklyn. She still lives here today. So I stand on her shoulders because she did so many things for me. She was mom, to quote her, she was mom and dad, and she did it all. But
Are you married to a black woman?
No. But we also got to acknowledge that your kids standing on your shoulders is what propels them to be successful. Like, my sons are in position in part because my success, my wife's success, but then also because you had two parents in there living together, growing together, thriving together.
For black people that's listening, because I did homework, and I like to see sometimes what black people feel about congressmen, and a lot of black people who I look at online and look at the comments don't feel like you're for them, whether it's you don't feel like this is a racist country.
You didn't let him answer the question, though, Em.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, the Jim Crow question.
What was the question?
You
Angela.
still
I was
stand 10
just
toes
letting
down
him
on what you
clarify. I
said.
think he's clarified. He
No,
was
I
saying
was just
during-
talking about I'm sorry. Go ahead, Angela. I'm sorry.
I guess
No,
I guess for
you
Angela,
can say
what you should ask him is, like, for those who criticize those comments, what did they get wrong?
I think what they got wrong is they think that I was trying to say that Jim Crow was this great era for black people. That's crazy. I would never say that. I never ever say that.
That's what I took from it. Not just because of the way the narrative was spun.
Yeah,
That's what I took from
And I think what the narrative happened was, in that room, it was all black people, a handful of.
Alexander Shaw, have you been on my Patreon for any time during the past couple of years? In fact, if you go back to my one of my Fridays, I have to figure out where it is. With Dr. Marif, we actually talked about reparations and what the plan was, and how you could actually, if the United States was smart, they would have given you reparations, okay, because they wouldn't be in the fix that they are now. Okay, so my next Behind the Wall, if you're there, okay, I'll give you my 10-minute spiel, which is my shortest elevator speech for reparations, how you could get them, and the best plan for it. Things I don't think you'll get it because reparations is not just money; it means power. And one thing they don't want to give black folks in the United States is power. They don't mind giving you money, but they do mind giving you power. That's why I don't think you will get it, okay, without a lot of arm twisting.
Reporters, the Philadelphia Inquirer wrote the story. The Philadelphia Inquirer actually wrote it accurately. What happened was that when it was the Biden campaign saw the story, and they came out with this tweet that made it seem like I was memorializing Jim Crow. That's crazy. So then Hakeem Jeffries, the Democratic leader, He went to the floor, gave a speech about it, and before you know it, this thing is going worldwide. So then I find myself in this position like, wait, hold up. My comms guy is telling me, hey, they're trying to hit you on your comments in Philadelphia. I'm like, over what? I was talking about black families and the growth of black families going forward in America, and that's a good thing. They said, no, they're saying you're memorializing Jim Crow. I was like, man, that's, ooh. I was going to curse on the airwaves.
But you should.
But I was just
why not say fuck Jim Crow then?
I mean, easy. Fuck Jim Crow. Nobody wants that. Like, but this is the problem, though. But what happens in politics is people will see a statement and then they want to emotionalize it. They want to sensationalize it to diminish your point of view and what you stand for and what you believe. Like, I believe in economic growth for everybody.
Facts.
I grew up, I was in the banking. Banking background is my career. So when I hear MV talk sometimes about access to capital, I know exactly what he's talking about, because current financial regulatory policy on Capitol Hill has only made the large banks bigger. They've massively
Well, Melvin Simmons, I guess you're not gonna get it in this system because you showed it as hell can't take it. If you can explain to me how black folks, those people in this United States, the most powerful country on the planet, can take power, I'd love to hear it. I've been hearing this for 40 years. If you can explain it to me, I'd love to hear it. Okay? Everybody talks this shit, but then, everybody talk about it, but everybody ain't about it. Okay?
Increased community banking in America. Well, if you're a young entrepreneur, young black entrepreneur, where are you going to go to get capital? From Citi, from Wells Fargo, from Chase, or from the community bank down the street? Well, that community bank is in your community. We have less community banking today.
Facts. If you know, it's facts. They'll never ask Kamala why she isn't married to a black man. Exactly. It's true.
In the United States than we had in 2009. The only difference, financial regulatory.
Your kids can, even the thing is, if your kids can read, in fact, I've seen people that couldn't read take power. Okay. In other words, you want to take power, that means you got to be willing to die, son.
Policy. Now,
hey, can y'all kind of watch the language in my chat a little bit? Okay.
if I want to bring politics into it, that policy was Dodd-Frank, which was written by congressional Democrats. They passed it unanimously by themselves, and then President Barack Obama signed it into law. The impacts of that regulatory policy has seen a decrease in community banking in the United States. That is the facts. And what that also does, it helps to diminish access to capital for people who look like us, who don't have the credit background. They don't have the family backgrounds. They don't have the historical backgrounds to get that capital and to rise and succeed. I want to change all that. That's what I believe.
What you were saying, Envy? You're saying black people don't like Maradona?
I was just gonna say though, do you feel like you get it honest though with people not liking you because of all the other stuff sometimes that you told and you stand on, and I just want to read this quote to make sure this is what you said, because you're saying that they misquoted you or they took things. So you said during Jim Crow, more black people were not just conservative because black people always been conservative minded, but more black people voted conservatively. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's what I said.
Right, but like during that time, the parties were a lot different though, right?
Not totally. I think that's one of the things.
They were very
I was asking you a question. I know the answer to.
Come on,
I'm asking you a question. I know we just met, but I'm asking you a question. I know the answer to, and I want you to.
I'm trying to answer her question.
I want you to answer your question though, like you know that I'm a person that can read.
Of course.
Okay, so during that time,
you just read it to me. I know you can read.
Yes, thank you. So during that time, the parties were different. So when you say something like this, and then people take what you say and put it in a context as to where the parties were at that time, and you can explain to the people where the parties were during Jim Crow and what the difference is between now and then, you understand why people headlined it and got upset the way that they did. Correct?
Well, a couple of things. Let's talk about the parties historically.
Yes, let's talk about it.
The Republican Party was the party of emancipation. It has always been the party that stood for the freeing of slaves and for civil rights. If you go back to the Civil Rights Acts, and it's not just the 64 Act, there were actually 5 other Civil Rights Acts before 1964, massively, overwhelmingly supported by the Republican Party. It was Democrats that were holding up those. When the 64 Act was going, before it went into law, the filibuster in the United States Senate was led by Democrat senators of the United States Senate. All those Democratic senators that filibustered the 1964 Civil Rights Act, they remained Democrat senators. They didn't switch to become Republican senators. Robert Byrd was a lawyer for the Klan. He was a Democrat senator. He was the dean of the Democratic Senate until the day he died. He didn't change parties. Now, I will acknowledge that Richard Nixon, in response to just political moves of that era, he started going into the South to trying to go find the conservative Democrat votes in the South. You call them Dixiecrats or whatever, to find conservative.
We're gonna finish this part, and I got to get out of here. So, I may do this behind the wall because the only way I could actually do this with video, full video, I'd have to do this on a Patreon. Okay, it's the only way I can actually do it. So I may redo this on Patreon. I'm not sure, but we'll see.
Democrat voters in the South in order to be able to, frankly, win the presidential election when he was running during that era. He did do that. Where I'm highly critical of the Republican Party, my colleagues will tell you, is that the Republican Party.
Appreciate you, Joe.
Party in the 60s really didn't even try to get black votes, didn't try to court black voters, didn't try to talk about black issues, didn't try to engage black people.
Actually, who changed it was what's his name? The guy that came up with the neoconservatives, with the new conservatives. It was actually a Republican Jewish guy that actually started to change the parties. And the biggest switch of the parties actually was affected by the Watts riot, believe it or not.
And so as I come along, my politics are about policy, not about personalities. I believe in policies that help people thrive and succeed. Where I tell people today in the Republican Party is you have black voters who are sitting back and saying, okay, now wait a minute. I've heard these speeches before. I've heard these talking points before, but nothing in my life is really changing. If you're trying to go court black voters, you actually have to go and engage black people. And so that's why I go everywhere. I just don't do Fox News. I think people kind of know that about me now. I just don't do Fox News. I go everywhere. Why? Because I'm trying to share my philosophies and my thoughts. I think political parties over time, they do adjust. But what's really happening today is that people are moving underneath the feet of the political parties.
Appreciate you, KMS.
I think that's a good thing for the country.
So speaking of moving underneath the feet of the parties, you want to talk about policy. And so I want to just play quickly what you said about reparations.
Dr. King said at the tail end of his life, he said, we're going to Washington to get our check. You understand? So now, what is your position on reparations?
Thank you. Great
I
question.
remember this.
Thank you. If we can all be quiet and let them answer. Thank you. Thank you.
I don't believe in reparations. I don't. Well, then you don't believe in the black community.
So you don't
believe in
Oh,
reparations?
wow. Why did y'all play the rest of the clip, man? I was on fire during that one. No,
Because, Byron, I think it's
don't.
important for people to get your yays and nays, just like you have to do on the House floor. You have to take a up or down vote on an issue.
No, you don't.
You took a down vote on this, and
There's a lot of black people that don't believe in reparations.
you haven't supported HR 40. So if you want to talk about the complexities of reparations,
There's a lot of black people in Congress that haven't supported HR 40. He's not the only one. A lot of your black females haven't supported HR 40.
whether or not there should be a study in this country, you again have said that this country is not racist, and even though it has a dark past, it doesn't sound like you think it has a dark present. You have not sponsored that bill. You haven't co-sponsored that bill. Why not?
Well, a couple things. One, that's why I wish you played the clip because I actually went into
you can explain.
detail, but I will. A couple things is, all right, how many people in the United States today are actually descendants of slave owners? Forget descendants of slaves. Let's hold that to the side. Descendants of slave owners. You've had massive immigration into the United States over the last 150 years. So now you're going to say that people who immigrated to the United States who are not descendants of slave owners, were not descendants of that trade, now they're going to be responsible for paying that out going forward. My mother's Jamaican. My father's Panamanian. You have a lot of black people in this country who are not descendants of the American slave trade. So I already know off top, there's a lot of black people in America who aren't going to be able to get that kind of benefit or get reparations.
Well, most people who are for reparations, they feel like it should go to what they call foundational black Americans anyway.
And I agree with that point. But I'm just saying, I'm just laying out, these are the reasons for why I'm no. So while I'm sitting
So you do support reparations for
Can you let him finish? Jesus Christ.
what Leonard just deemed as, quote, foundational black Americans?
No, I don't.
No.
But I want to explain
Okay.
that. I want to explain that. And so that's why you have a lot of people saying, okay, well, then what are we going to do? And so my view is that what you do going forward is why you have to have wholesale changes in economic, medical policy, et cetera, so that the ability to access various parts of our economy and grow in our economy work for everybody, including people in our country who are, quote unquote, foundationally black. Now, let me translate to what's happened in California. This is your state. In California, there was a push to
I'm
have the
actually from Washington State.
Oh, I'm sorry, but I heard earlier you was in California, so that's why I'm saying it.
No problem.
So there was a bill in California for reparations. The California Assembly, which is massively Democrat, they didn't move that bill. They could have moved that bill. When they were asked why they weren't moving that bill, they tucked tail and turned and ran away. They didn't even have the guts to actually answer that question. So I'm here with y'all. I'll tell you why I'm a no. But you have Democrats who will say they're for something, but when it comes time to actually do it, they're not there for you. They say they run away. They don't answer the question, and to be blunt, like the current vice president, not answering a lot of questions.
But she did say that she's for reparations.
After she said she wasn't. So which one is it?
No, she knows that she wasn't.
That's never happened.
That's the false narrative.
All right, that's fine. I'm
All right. We'll have to end it there. But he explained it, and there's a lot of black people that I know that are not for reparations. So just because, and you'll find foundational black Americans that are not for reparations. Trust and believe. Okay, we had this talk in 2018 when reparations was a big thing. When the ADOS movement was a big thing, right? There's a whole bunch of black folks that weren't for it. Okay, so he's not the only one. Okay, you doing live stream night? Okay, Charles, you better put your link up real quick if you're gonna do it. Unless it's later, then send me a text. Anyhow, y'all, let me get out of here. So I got to go do some homework. So I will check you guys later.
Музыка Денис Шеден.